I'm going to Kansas City. If I come, I come, I come, I come. I'm going to Kansas City.
Welcome everybody to another episode of Chopping It Up with the Cleavers. My name is Emmanuel Cleaver III.
And I'm Emil Cleaver.
Check us out every Tuesday. We drop a new episode. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel, Chopping It Up with the Cleavers. Check us out most places you get your podcast. So some craziness happened.
Like always.
We live in the United States, so that's what we can expect. Why do you guys always talk about race? Well,
we're race baiters. No,
because we live in the United States. So the Florida Department of Education under Governor DeSantis, I know it's DeSantis, I'm going to call
possibly
him
our future president,
rejects advanced placement courses in African American studies because they believe it promotes a political agenda. I mean, think about that. They are rejecting an AP, African American Studies, because to talk about the contributions of black folk is promoting a political agenda.
We need to pay attention, people. We need to pay attention out there.
Why do we talk about race all the time? Well, here it is.
They're pretty much trying to eliminate any accomplishments of any African American. So basically, you can't talk about outside of the civil rights movement, Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King. You can't talk about
those are only two people you
anything.
can talk about.
You can't talk about Medgar Evers, even though he was part of the civil rights movement. Can't talk about Malcolm X.
Man, come on. Can't talk about Marcus Garvey or
you
Joanna Lee.
can't talk about
Sojourner
Phyllis
Truth.
Wheatley or anyone, Mary McLeod Bethune.
But the fact that they did this shows that they had a bad education. I mean, they're ignorant. So
Well, it's obvious they're ignorant.
So if you teach about the contributions of Marcus Garvey in their minds, that means that you are picking the president. Or it's something crazy. It's a political agenda. So the fact that DeSantis
Rick
is a Republican, that basically means that if you talk black stuff, you're talking Democrats.
You can't talk about the accomplishments of black Americans, which is
talking about
ridiculous.
Democrats. That's what they're saying.
It's ridiculous. You can't talk about the accomplishments of black Americans.
So what would you say that DeSantis and the Department of Education in Florida, what do they need to know most about African American studies that might help them? I mean, what would?
I would say, the way I would come at him, it would be too rough. I would say that originally,
They need it.
all people came from Africa.
That's going to shut down the conversation. Get him out of here. Get this man out of here.
Human beings came from
here.
Africa.
Get
and
out of
when
here.
the food shortage began, people began to migrate and populate other parts of the world. So you come from blackness.
Come on, man. You think he's going to accept that?
You think the Department of Education will be listening?
Yeah, you got to ease. You got to ease into that.
How do you ease into the
I don't know.
blackness?
I mean, you say something like, "Hey, Governor DeSantis, you mean to tell me you're not going to talk about Rosewood that happened right there in your state? Important thing. Well, you're not talking about
You
it.
think he knows about that?
Man.
I mean, he might know about it. It may be a celebration for him.
Well,
it may be just something that happened.
And well, I doubt he watched the movie. I mean, the movie embellished
Of course.
a lot of stuff, which is what movies do. But it's still told about the 1923, where this black town in Florida, Rosewood, was destroyed because a white woman said, well, she actually didn't say she was raped. Her husband is the one who, the white woman just said she was, I don't know if she just said she was attacked, but she didn't say she was raped. Her husband came along and he got the Klan, he got other folks.
Yeah,
like,
people just started getting mad.
Black tar baby raped my wife. When he made up the whole thing. And as a result, men, women, and children were killed.
Black.
1923, right there in Florida. And in 1982, the survivors, there were a few, they were in their 80s and 90s, were awarded $2 million
That's it,
to share.
man.
But so one, the survivors,
pay
that's not
taxes
good
on that?
enough. Yeah, because
Come on, man.
But to share
2
$2 million with all the survivors, and I don't know how many there were, man. Come on,
Doesn't matter.
that's ridiculous.
2 million
So,
isn't enough for one survivor.
no. But what about the town? I mean, 2 million doesn't even begin to do the damage. The family members. So it was the survivors. It wasn't the family of people who died. It was just survivors. So what Florida did was terrible. But I mean, that's one reason why African American studies needs to be taught in Florida.
Yeah.
I mean, Governor DeSantis, you ought to sit and make him watch the movie. He ought to watch all those things, Mississippi Burning and Rosewood, and watch documentaries about Black Wall Street and Tulsa.
I mean, he might like Mississippi Burning.
Well, he won't like the end, although.
Yeah, I mean, they got a tap on the wrist compared to what they did. I mean, none of them did it over 10 years.
This is the reason why a lot of our episodes deal with racism in this country, because things like this
Keep happening.
constantly. I mean, it's not surprised if of all the states who did this, you would expect, okay, maybe it's going to be Florida or Texas.
Yeah. Texas, don't they have something similar? I mean,
Texas got,
you can't do the CRT, critical race theory.
So Florida actually did that.
So
No
you can't
advanced studies.
You can't talk about black people in Florida.
Well, that's not quite, but yeah.
I mean, I not yet. I mean, right now it's just African studies, and then you had to define what is African studies, African American studies. You had to define what is that. I mean, because it's a broad spectrum of things. I mean, you can go into just film, the African American studies in film, which is just one segment, music and everything. So, I mean, if you talk about the beginning of filmmaking, we're talking about blackface, and we're talking about even when whites dressed up as Asians. Charlie Chaplin was a white man. So, I mean, just Hollywood in general, in the music business in general, has had a long history of racism, civil rights, and activism. You can't talk about that now? I mean, how far does it go?
You can't. I mean, yeah, you can't even, because I would say then you can't talk about the Civil Rights Bill of 1968.
Yeah, you can't
that
talk
Lyndon Johnson signed, but you can't talk about that because it benefited black folk.
Yeah, I don't know what the people of Florida are going to do.
Man, this is blatant. I mean, it's not
racism.
They ain't even trying to hide it since Donnie Trump came on the scene. I mean, they don't even try to hide it anymore. I mean, this is blatant. Outright
racism.
I mean, they might as well change the state flag and have niggeros on there or something. Niggeros are not welcome. Something. I mean, so not only will black students not be able to learn advanced placement African American studies, but it's not just for black folk.
Yeah.
I mean, it's real life stuff.
But I wonder, can you study Native American studies?
For now,
because
But if he believes that there's a political agenda, they believe. I don't know. I mean, right now he can.
Yeah, probably because most of the natives are on reservations, so they can't vote for him. Or so yeah, they probably don't care.
Well, I mean, I'm sure their team, but it's something that everybody ought to care about. I mean, it's a part of this history, the land that we live in. So how can we not study? How can Native, which is not, I mean, right now, I don't remember any Native American studies.
Well, I mean,
or learning about anything in school.
Yeah, we studied about Native Americans.
Man,
we studied about the Europeans coming in, and they would kill them and move them to
Manifest Destiny.
I mean,
Trail of Tears,
yeah,
Andrew Jackson. Yeah, I mean,
we did learn about that.
I'm talking about the culture, the history.
Well,
not
you'd have to
what
go to
Europeans did to them.
You'd have to go to a museum. They have one in Wichita.
Yeah, I mean, but it's something.
I'm sure there's others, but yeah, you can't just they're not going to teach that in any Western civilization
they need
school.
to, though.
Even though this was their land, but that's a different story.
And that's why
we can't even talk about slavery in Florida. I hope it didn't get to Missouri.
Well, hey, the Missouri General Assembly, they'll hear about it and they'll be like, hey,
Yeah, I'm sure they're going to be pretty
talk
happy
to the
about it.
Department of Education here in Missouri.
Yeah, there's some towns in Missouri that probably, I mean, they already don't teach
Well,
any black studies.
Yeah, I mean, well, most of the schools in Missouri, I mean, they probably
Yeah.
touch on it. They don't really, but this is advanced placement, so it's supposed to be more in detail. I mean, where it's not just a section in history where you're covering, okay, this week we'll talk about the contributions of Negroes in America.
So the bottom line is parents teach your kids about
Got to.
our culture
Got to.
because they're not going to learn about it in school.
Got
They're
to.
not going to learn about it any other way.
Yeah. So that is, man, also just hoping that Rick, man, he will not be a good
President. I mean, if he's president, this may be a national law.
Rick DeSantis might reinstitute slavery.
Yeah.
I mean, I think.
And Herschel Walker will help him.
What will Herschel Walker's role be?
He would be the overseer. You know, they had black overseers. They had
He's
black.
gonna be a black overseer.
Yeah, they had old black overseers. He would be an overseer.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, he would.
well,
be,
I'd work on his field because he'd easily be tricked. It'd be like was Hogan's Hero, where they thought that they were holding the Americans captives, but the Americans were really running game on them. Probably
Yeah.
don't remember that.
Yeah,
But,
I remember Hogan's. I mean, but Herschel. The thing about Herschel, he would be like that character on Boondocks where he chased down the slaves. Remember that?
Yeah.
What was it? Freeman. Something Freeman. I can't remember his name. But yeah, he was a black man that chased down runaway slaves, and you ain't gonna outrun Herschel Walker. He's gonna catch you.
Yeah, but you have to trick him. You can trick him easily. Easy. So look, Herschel Walker, there's some white women over there, and he'll just take off running or something.
Yeah.
But that wasn't the only news. You're talking about black folk, and we're talking about Florida. So you want to talk about what happened at Bethune-Cookman,
So I'm
United
sure,
Methodist HBCU in Florida.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people already know about it. Ed Reed, Hall of Fame football player, was, I guess, in negotiations with Bethune-Cookman to be the head football coach. And when he got to campus, he said it was dirty and there was trash everywhere. He said they didn't even clean his office. Unfortunately, he put this on Facebook and social media.
Why?
I'm not sure about that. I don't see.
He's not a child, is he?
No, but he
Yeah, I
acted
don't
like one when he did that.
Yeah,
But
Ed
he was
Reed-
going up. He accused the administration of being corrupt, that they were taking money and weren't using it on the school. And he accused all HBCUs of being the same way. And you see I'm wearing my school sweats. Philander Smith, you see the hat. So we went to a HBCU. So when he said that, of course, I was offended off top because he went to a HBCU, one HBCU. He was on campus for a week, and he knows everything about the ins and out of how it runs.
Yeah. One, I mean, Ed Reed, if nobody said this to you, you were wrong.
Yes, you were.
I know
No
you're
question
big,
about
I
it.
know he's a big fan of the show, but I need to tell you, you absolutely were wrong. You don't do that to an employee. You go, why not go talk? Why not? Aren't you an adult? If he's an adult,
Yeah,
go talk to the folk.
yeah. You
But
still
then
be
to
there.
make an accusation on all HB, come on, man.
You'll never get a job at another HBCU.
Well, you know the football team at Bethune-Cookman still wants him.
Well, I mean, I can understand why. He was bringing in donors. He had talked to a bunch of donors about donating money. I mean, he was going to change that place around. There was no question about that. That's why I hate that he did it that way and that he had to go, because I know he was going to make a difference there, but he just didn't have to put him on blast first. I mean, he could have went up in the administration building and done that and probably still kept his job. But of course, the football team still wants him. A Hall of Fame football player, come on.
Yeah, you would also, I mean, he talks about HBCUs, but what about all the PWIs that had corrupt sports programs?
Yeah.
All of them? I mean, even before you could give endorsements or pay whatever they're doing in college now, I mean, that was happening.
Yeah.
It was illegal.
Yeah.
You didn't say nothing like that. I guarantee he was a blue chip prospect.
Right.
I guarantee he was getting money outside of a scholarship.
Yep.
Why didn't you complain about that?
Yeah.
That's corrupt. That's corrupt.
So, I mean, to just throw a blanket statement on HBCUs that was wrong, man. That was wrong.
You were wrong, dude.
Yeah.
You
were
were
wrong
straight
about
up wrong.
that.
But, I mean, you look at it, you said it earlier, man, HBCUs just don't have the money that the PWIs schools have.
That's the problem. You had to tell them what the PWIs are.
Predominantly white institutions.
Yeah.
So all the HBCUs endowment combined is $1.3 billion. And that's according to the National Center for Educational Statistics.
Can't
All
compete.
the HBCUs, $1.3 billion combined as of 2021. I mean, you got some of those Ivy League schools that have more than that on their own. HBCUs just don't get the funding. So if you saw all that,
they don't even have to be Ivy League schools to have more than that.
Yeah, I mean,
doesn't KU have more than that? I bet they do.
No, bet they do. But here, so if you saw that, Ed, I mean, why not try to help? I mean, because you clearly see.
Though. That's the disappointing thing about it, because that he was going to make a change. He would have made a big difference in that school, because like I said, he had already talked to a bunch of donors to come there, and he said that was the biggest recruiting class that they ever had.
Sure.
So I mean, he was going to do good things. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind. But he just did it the wrong way, and I wish he hadn't done that, because, like I said, he'd still be there doing good things. I know Eddie George came out and said when he got to where is he? Is he at Jackson?
Somewhere in Alabama, I thought.
Yeah, he's at an HBCU, and he said that when he got there, he saw that they didn't have a field endowment or something like that. There was no endowment for the football field, so that's why they were playing on an old field. And I don't know if Ed Reed knows about things like that to get things done. I mean, I don't know.
He may not understand.
Yeah, I mean, I wish he would have. I mean, yeah, I don't see how they can work it out. I mean, maybe they can, since the football team wants him so bad. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, public apology is the first thing. I think he's already made one, hasn't he?
I don't know.
I think he has.
But here's a lesson to everybody. If you're trying to work out a relationship, whether your name is Master P or Romeo, whether your name is Ed Reed, don't put it on social media, man. That doesn't help anything. To put your grievances on social media is basically saying, I want you to be on my side because I'm not going to try to work things out with this other person or this other institution. It's a childish thing.
Yeah, I'm just reading now. He did apologize.
Man, that ain't. I mean, but it's damage. That's the thing about something, when it comes out, when it's negative, the press is going to hit it. Mm-hmm. But when the apology or the correction comes, you don't hear a whole lot about that, because that's not news. That doesn't sell. People just want to know the scandal. They don't want to know what actually happened.
Yeah.
So he apologized. But man, I mean, to see an adult, I mean, yeah, there's a time for social media. If you're protesting some company, and that is the only thing you can do is to put it on social media.
If it is a big company, that's probably is the only thing you could do.
Right. But for a school that you're working out a contract with, man, that's childish.
Well, he's a multi-millionaire with many, many connections. I mean, he could have. Yeah, I don't know.
Childish.
Yeah, I'm disappointed that he did that, because I wish he could have stayed there. And done some things there. Because, I mean, if we get all these former pro players coaching HBCUs, it's gonna bring a lot of money to these schools.
Yeah, these PWIs have money. These larger schools have money, and a lot of it comes through athletics.
Yeah.
I mean, Ed, you certainly could have helped if you stuck with Bethune-Cookman, and you could have brought some money in so that changes could be made. I mean, it doesn't receive the funding that other United Methodist schools. I mean, Duke, it doesn't receive the funding of Duke or Southern Methodist University.
So why doesn't the United Methodist school like Philander receive the funding that Duke does? You were on the Philander board. I mean, you should have a little bit more insight of how schools work and all that. I mean,
the funding comes from that conference. So the Philander Smith College receives money from the Arkansas Conference of the United Methodist Church every year, and from the Black College Fund, which is a part of the United Methodist Church. So it does receive money, but I mean, a lot of it is outside money as well. They're both United Methodist schools, but they're not going to receive that money that a Duke or Southern Methodist University might receive, and that wouldn't be the board's problem. And that would be something that would be attacked at that conference. If you're talking about receiving money from the United Methodist Church, you would address the conference.
Yeah, I know.
So, I mean, that's for those pastors, and I know some pastors that have raised that question because Hendrix College, which is another United Methodist school, we played them, received more. And I know some people that brought that to the attention of the powers that be. So I don't know if that's changed since then.
Well, yeah, you would think all the United Methodist schools, aren't most of them the PWI schools, aren't they funded pretty well? United Methodist.
Yeah, but I mean, you also got to remember they're getting money from not just the church. The church doesn't have any money.
Okay.
But
they're getting money from the
alums and other sponsors. I mean, it's not going to be hard for Duke. I mean, Duke is probably that's the extreme.
Yeah. Okay, CM Central
Methodist University. I mean, I don't know what they receive here in Missouri, but they're going to get funding from more than just the United Methodist Church.
Because when we went to Philander, our athletic department was pretty basic. It was the weight room. I mean, if you could call it that. I mean, well, you could call it a weight room. It literally was a room with weights in it. Yeah. And the gym was run down. I know it's different now, but I mean that's a normal thing. The athletic programs at these small HBCUs can't compete or compare. Yeah. Even with the counterparts. I mean, we used to go play other NAIA schools, and their gyms and facilities were a lot better than ours.
But yeah, you got at Philander, Dr. Trudy Kibbe Reed. She's the one that did all that development, changed the campus, and new gymnasium, all that stuff. That happened under her. Then, of course, where she went after that.
Where was that?
She went to Bethune-Cookman. She was president of Philander Smith. Then she left there and she went to Bethune-Cookman. She's not there.
Is she there now?
No, she's not there now. But
everybody leaves. All the good ones leave. Walter Kimbrough, Dr. Kim. Oh.
Yeah. So, Walter Kimbrough, he went to Philander Smith, then Dillard. But, yeah, I mean, the money comes. I mean, through these. I mean, you could have helped the athletic program, could have helped the whole school, which I'm sure is what happened at Jackson State with Deion Sanders. And again, Deion Sanders did a great thing for HBCUs. He just brought out the attention. Like a few episodes ago, the mistake he made was saying that he is the HBCU.
Yeah, that's the only thing he did wrong.
That was
because everything else he did was perfect.
He did that. But also remember, he lost the HBCU championship twice. He won the SWAC, but they lost the Black College championship twice.
Well, he said, he didn't say he was Mr. HBCU. He said he was Mr. SWAC, or he was the SWAC.
Well, yeah,
So he won those conferences. So, but yeah, I mean, that was wrong. But everything else that he said, he was right. I mean, Deion Sanders did good thing at Jackson
Absolutely.
State. Ed Reed was on his way to doing the same thing, I believe, but it just didn't work out. And these black colleges, they need that. They need that because the money's suffering there. And I mean, just think if we would have had a professional basketball player as our coach at Philander Smith,
like they do now.
Oh yeah, Todd
Day.
Yeah.
Todd Day is the coach, and as you know, the program, the school is completely different. It's a good thing.
Yeah.
But enrollment at HBCUs is down, so HBCUs are struggling. But a lot of it is because these PWIs give scholarships that HBCUs just can't I mean, they ain't got the endowment to give scholarships to bring students.
Yeah, I mean,
And so the enrollment is down at a lot of them, maybe most of them. Just can't compete.
It was Tennessee State. Eddie George is at Tennessee State.
Yeah.
That he's coaching there. So, so I mean that helps with that. And I remember seeing Tennessee State's field. I mean it was because what is it? Tennessee State, is that in Nashville?
Yeah. Nashville they got
drove
3
by that
HBCUs
campus.
there.
Yeah. So I mean Little Rock has 3. If you look at it, I mean Shorter College, isn't that a black junior college? Arkansas Baptist and
A&B
Philander.
Church. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, the HBCUs are down south, so we're big supporters of HBCUs.
Absolutely.
So hopefully, we can bring some more
Need some
recognition.
people other than that people like Ed Reed, but have going there knowing, hey, this school doesn't have the money of Alabama.
Well, Todd Day did that with Philander because he knows they didn't have the money of Arkansas which and he was a superstar there. So yeah, I mean that's a good deal.
So since we're on the subject of HBCUs and black studies, the top 5 for this list, we're going to do the top 5 athletes to come out of an HBCU, historically black college or university, which is hard to do because there were so many. So my number 5, I'm trying to avoid having a 4-way tie, but it's tough. So who's going first this week?
I think it's you. I mean, I can go first.
All right. So, man,
am I going first?
I don't know. I was gonna go.
Okay, go ahead.
I don't know. My number 5 is gonna be sloppy because it's just too many. So number 5, I'm gonna put Shannon Sharp, who went to Savannah State.
Who's been in the news a lot lately.
He almost got into a scrap with some of the Memphis Grizzlies players and parents. But Shannon Sharp, NFL Hall of Famer, one of the greatest tight ends to ever do it. I'm going to put him number 5 and share that responsibility with Ben Wallace. Ben Wallace, who was an NBA Hall of Famer from Virginia Union. Wasn't even a Division I HBCU. That's just how good he was.
That's how good he was.
Division II HBCU. One of the greatest defensive players of all time. Won Defensive Player of the Year 4 times.
Man, that's
4
incredible
times
feat.
in the NBA. So that's my number 5, Shannon Sharp and Ben Wallace. Number 4 was this dude called Earl the Pearl Monroe.
What school did he go to?
Winston-Salem. Winston-Salem is where Earl the Pearl went. One of the greatest basketball players of all time. NBA Hall of Famer. He was in the class where they did the 50 greatest of all time. Of course, he was in there with the 75 greatest players of all time.
Michael Jordan, one of his favorite players.
Yeah. So,
he was He was kind of one of the first players to start doing the dipsy do and all the fancy,
the playground,
the real fancy, the playground type deal in the NBA.
They called him Black Jesus,
which was
an oxymoron. Yeah, it is an oxymoron, but that's what they called him because of just how cold he was. All right, so number 3, I have Jerry Rice, the greatest wide receiver of all time. Super Bowl champion.
Best according to Andre Rison, but go ahead.
I don't know. Andre Rison may not even be in the top 5 of mine, but anyway, he's supposed to say that. Jerry Rice played at Mississippi Valley State, so mad props to Jerry Rice, one of the greatest wide receiver. Has all kind of records that if you look at them, some of them I don't even see how they're going to be broken. Number two, I have Walter Payton.
Sweetness.
He had the most rushing yards in the NFL for a long time until Emmitt Smith finally broke it. But Walter Payton played for Jackson State, and he was a good guy. Every year they give the Walter Payton Award for the person who knows how to conduct themselves and does right by others. So Walter Payton, number 2. Number one, I have Wilma Rudolph. And the reason, and she was Tennessee State. And the reason why I have Wilma Rudolph is because the impact that she had on sports.
Yeah.
Wilma Rudolph actually elevated women's track and field. I mean, it wasn't as big as it is today, but partly it is what it is today because she brought attention to it. So Wilma Rudolph, just how cold she was, she first ran in the Olympics in 1956 as a high schooler and won bronze as a high schooler. Then came back 4 years later, and she became the first black woman to win 3 gold medals in one Olympics, 1960.
Smoking them.
Wilma Rudolph, Tennessee State, HBCU.
Good list. Good list. All right, so my list, I have a lot of those same people. Number 5, I'm going to put Althea Gibson. And Florida A&M University. Florida, it's funny, a lot of the show is about Florida today.
Yeah,
but
their craziness.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, during that period, just to be a tennis player, just being alive to see what Venus and Serena went through. I can only imagine what she went through, Althea Gibson went through when she was playing tennis.
Her and Arthur Ashe went through a whole lot.
Yeah, I mean, something we couldn't even imagine. And they didn't have the camera phones like they do today to capture everything, but I'm sure that they heard some things that we couldn't even imagine and have seen some things. Yeah. So Althea Gibson, number 5. Number 4, I have Wilma Rudolph, Tennessee State. Of course, she dominated the Olympics, and I'm sure it was hard for her in the 60s.
Sure, yeah.
Being a black woman, beating all these white women.
1960, that was the Black Power Olympics.
Yeah, so, I mean, I'm sure those women were looking at her like, who is this black woman smoking us like that? All we seeing is her backside in the dust. But, yeah, Wilma Rudolph, black college, and these are all legends. The people we're naming are legends, and they came from black colleges. Just think if more athletes went to black colleges. Number 3, this is the one that you didn't have, Edwin Moses, Morehouse, one of the greatest Olympic athletes of all time.
How many years he go without losing?
Man, I can't even remember.
It was like close to a decade.
I think it was like 9 years that without losing the race. He did the hurdles, but yeah, he was doing it for a long time. Edwin Moses, he was a bad man. Olympic great. Went to Morehouse. Number 2, I have, like you said, one of the greatest wide receivers of all time, Jerry Rice, if not the greatest, probably the greatest. I don't think there's anybody that you can say is better. You could argue he's the greatest football player of all time. But yeah, Jerry Rice, Mississippi Valley State. Even though he dances for chicken, he danced for chicken.
Come on, Jerry.
Embarrassed himself and his legacy. But he still got to give it to him on his athletic ability. And he was one of those people who didn't look like was athletic. I mean, he just looked like a regular dude, man. But I mean, he was athletic. Number 1, of course, is sweetness. Not of course, but number 1 is Walter Payton, one of the greatest running backs of all time. Died too short, but was leader of that 85, the Bears. One of the greatest football teams of all time, they say. Refrigerator Perry made a terrible rap song that it was a hit, though.
Yeah.
But, Walter Payton, I mean, he had it all. If he wanted to buckle down and hit you when he was running and run you over, he could do that. But if he wanted to make you look silly like Barry Sanders, he can do that, before Barry Sanders.
He played hard, man.
Yeah, he was a good player, so... that's my top 5. I know there's some other great athletes that we missed out. Doug Williams, and he went back to coach He went back to Coach Grambling, didn't he?
He did.
Yeah, he went back.
Michael Strahan, Texas Southern.
Oh yeah, Michael Strahan. He's one of the great linebackers. doing well after football too.
Yeah, that's good. So Edwin Moses did go 10 years. It was 10 years,
10 years.
undefeated. He won 122 consecutive races, which is insane.
Yeah, that means he had to take care of himself. I might wonder what his diet was. I'm gonna look it up later.
Yeah, maybe he had to.
Yeah,
Steve McNair.
yeah. He's good.
There's a
Rest in
bunch of
peace.
Willis Reed. Several HBCUs have produced some of the greatest athletes that the world has ever seen.
And that's and you know, a lot of those older athletes, they didn't have a choice. They had to go to those schools. But now, you know, people have a choice, and you know, of course, they're picking those big schools. But it could have been a revolution.
They want to get paid.
Somebody has to buckle up, buckle down. Somebody like Deion Sanders, somebody like Ed Reed needs to buckle down and go ahead and take the loss in salary or whatever and change and make a revolution and get all these top-notch recruits going to these black schools. It'll change the world.
Yeah, it would.
Because they can teach black studies at a black college. They don't need permission.
Yeah, I mean, you learned that not outside of the classroom.
Yeah, you don't even have to go in the classroom because there's going to be, I guarantee you, there's going to be some people that are just going to be preaching it.
Revolutionaries on the campus.
Yeah, there's
right
always
there in
gonna
the
be
student
revolutionaries.
union, out on the yard.
Yeah.
So we can't forget about our HBCUs and can't forget about African American Studies. DeSantis, he had his people call because he doesn't like me saying DeSantis.
Oh yeah.
A lot of his people love watching the show.
Oh okay.
Because they're trying to learn. But seriously, man, I mean, come on, Florida, come on, get your
Rick.
stuff together.
Governor, we'd love to have you as a guest on the show.
We'll be fair.
We will be fair.
Be fair. You'll sit right here in the middle. You won't have a lot of room, but you're gonna sit in the middle, man.
We'll sit in the middle, put my arm around you like this.
Yeah, and worse.
No, because he has security. You have to remember that. So.
We'll lock the door so they can't get in. So we'll first we'll ask him questions. Then DeSantis, you're gonna have to listen.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to listen because there's gonna be some lecturing.
He's not a good in public. You remember, I mean, you know, he's good with, you know, behind the scenes, but as far as debating or his speaking skills, he's not very good.
I'm trying to think, when have I heard him like
in that debate when old boy was like the racist.
Yeah.
You might not be a racist, but the racists know who you are. Something like that. The one that got found naked with the
man. Yeah,
with the
it was gonna be
male-
tough for him to win anyway.
Yeah.
But with that, so what was his comeback? I don't remember.
He
His
didn't come back, man.
he
He's
can't.
done.
No. I'm talking about in the debate. What did
No, he didn't come back. He just had a real stupid look on his face.
Special individual look.
Yeah.
All right, that's our list. Let us know who we missed. There are a lot of athletes. So HBCU grads that did great things in the field of athletics. We could do it actually in every field. We can do it in politics.
Yeah.
Do it in religion. You could do it in entertainment.
I bet you're gonna find a lot more in politics and social activism.
Law?
You'll find, in activism.
Right.
I mean, I think the most successful, I would say, in overall, I think I've heard. I don't know if this is true. We need to look it up. The most successful percentage of black people come from HBCUs. I don't know if that's true. Maybe
I've heard. Yeah.
Maybe I'm making that up. Of course, you know, black people that go to Ivy Leagues, of course, they're extremely successful, but they're not a lot of them. There are a lot of successful black people coming out of, you know, just our school. Philander Smith, I'm sure if we looked around at some of the people that graduated, there's going to be some extremely successful people.
There's a lot of them.
Yeah.
A lot of them. So HBCUs here to stay. Check us out. Every Tuesday we drop a new episode. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Subscribe to it.
Yeah.
Chopping It Up with the Cleavers.
We need more subscribers.
Check us out most places you get your podcasts.
Peace.
I'm of the models, here I am. I come, that's where I'm from. I say I'm gone.